Taiwan, where they took all of our computer chips and semiconductors. We used to be the king, right? We were everything. We had all of it. Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel. We had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us.
最近看到个视频啊，那叫一个解气哦。中国学者高志凯接受半岛电视台采访，跟几个独派嘉宾吵起来了，那场面啊，火药味十足。事情是这么回事儿，因为咱们在那个台海搞演习嘛，半岛电视台就请了高志凯，还有台湾和日本的嘉宾一起聊聊。哎，结果呢，一张嘴就是台独那一套。你猜高志凯博士啊是怎么怼的？哎呦，真的是太解气了。
Feng Yu, I want to come to you now. What do the Taiwanese people want? Because it feels like the country's been in limbo, stuck between these two superpowers, the US and China. How do the Taiwanese people want this to play out in the next couple of years?
Yes. So according to the public polls, so we see that a super majority of people, like 80 or 90% of people, think that we want the so-called status quo. And the most interesting thing is that people define status quo in different ways. So most of people define status quo as one country in each side. I mean, Taiwan is a side and mainland China is another side. And because it's a fact, because since the 90s, we have been democratized and we elect our own system, our own president, our own government, and we have the military, we have a constitution, we have everything, every element of an independent sovereignty country. So people are now willing to defend ourselves, defend our democratic system. That is the status quo for most of people. People reject explicitly the proposal by China. That is a one country, two system. And also our government, the democratically elected government, reject the proposal of the one China principle, which says Taiwan is part of China. So we refuse it. People vote to resist invasion of China. That is very clear public polls in Taiwan.
Okay, Victor, we heard there that a war is up to President Xi. He's the one who's going to decide if there is an invasion or not. He has also said the military should be ready for a full-scale invasion by 2027. What do you think is going to happen? How likely do you think it is?
To unify Taiwan is not only something new, it is the policy of China ever since 1949, when the nationalist government fled from the mainland China to Taiwan. So don't pretend that this is something new. This just came over overnight. No, this has been consistent Chinese policy for the past 75 years. Therefore, please be assured, Taiwan will be reunified. We hope it will be achieved by peaceful means. But if Lai Ching-te and the separatists want to test fire, they will really test fire, because eventually it may be achieved through non-peaceful ways. Now, the Taiwanese panelists talked about one country, two system. If they do not want to have one country, two system, eventually they will get one country, one system.
Okay.
That's the high probability event. Be prepared.
高志凯博士这话说的那叫一个干脆利落，不想搞一国两制啊，行啊，那就只能接受一国一制。咱们已经够客气了，提出了这个一国两制这么个方案，想尽量照顾到台湾那边的实际情况。结果呢，有些人蹬鼻子上脸，非要搞分裂。那好啊，既然你们不想要两制，那就别怪我们不客气了，那就直接一致伺候了。一国两制和一国一制啊，这说白了就是两种不同的方案。这一国两制呢，就像在一个大家庭里啊，它是允许有些孩子啊，比如香港啦、澳门、台湾啦，哎，是可以保留自己的生活习惯和规矩，那有一定的自由度，但前提是大家都得承认这是一个家哦。这一国一制啊，就简单粗暴了，全家就得按一个规矩来，谁也不能搞特殊。那为啥说一国一制是最后才考虑的呢？因为如果有人非要闹分家，和平解决的希望就没有了。哎，为了保住这个家，那就只能用一些比较强硬的手段。一旦动真格的，那肯定就没办法照顾到每个人的特殊情况了，只能统一管理了。那个台湾嘉宾听了高志凯这话，估计当时脸都绿了吧。所以说高志凯博士这话那不是说说而已啊，不光是警告那些搞台独的，那也是警告所有心里面打歪主意的人，这咱们的底线就摆在那儿，谁也别想碰，那就是国家主权和领土完整。这谁要是敢挑战，那就得做好接受一国一制的准则。说起来啊，高教授博士可不是第一次被问到台湾问题了， 记得去年8月10号，半岛电视台英文频道播了个采访，主持人是个英国籍的美国记者，采访对象就是咱们的高志凯博士。我觉得这哪是采访啊，这简直就是场辩论啊！那个美国记者上来就问个特别尖锐的问题，说你们中国人为啥就不能放弃台湾呢？老惦记着干啥？一听这话就知道来者不善，想给我们下套呢。不过我们高志凯博士那也不是吃素的，必须得怼回去。
China, in 2024, the defense spending is going up by 7%, the most for 5 years. You've had 29 consecutive years of military expenditure growth, the most of any country in the world. Since 2022, China has increased military drills around Taiwan. It's escalated since the new Taiwanese president was inaugurated in May. China is not a fan of him. Since then, there's been almost daily activity involving China's warships, drones, cyber attacks against Taiwan. China is getting ready to invade Taiwan, isn't it?
There is only one China. Taiwan is part of China, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legitimate government for the totality of China. The exact status between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait is the unfinished civil war back in 1949. So ever since the beginning of the 1980s, okay, China does not want to use a war to solve this unification problem.
You don't want to use a war, but you're surrounding it with ships, drones, cyber attacks, and making lots of threats.
Each time when the separatists in Taiwan want to push the edge of the envelope, they will come across more and more demonstration of the commitment of the Chinese nation to eventually achieve peaceful reunification or otherwise. That's the litmus test.
Your defense minister said anyone who dares to pursue independence for Taiwan will be crushed into pieces and face destruction. Sounds like a truly peaceful guy.
That's a real statement. Because if the separatists really want to push the edge of the envelope with the aid of some big country, for example, which wants to use Taiwan as a proxy in its own geopolitical rivalry against China, then wait until you see what will happen. Reunification will be achieved, and China is the only permanent member of the United Nations Security Council which has not yet achieved a complete reunification.
I'm always amused with this phrase reunification. And why this obsession with Taiwan? You are a country of 3.7 million square miles, a population 60 times that of Taiwan, economy 20 times the size of Taiwan. Why are you obsessed with Taiwan? Why not just leave them be?
In terms of defending China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, any inch of land is not 1 inch too much. Any one single person is not one person too many. So we need to achieve reunification
even though they don't want to be part of your country. 12% of the people of Taiwan say they want to reunify with China. 12%. You can't get more unpopular than that in that.
Mehdi, it's not up to the people in Taiwan to decide about the one China policy.
You're very blunt in your disregard for people's views, freedoms, dignity. You say that you don't care about what they think. You also said in an interview with the French newspaper Le Monde, once we get the island back, we'll have to ask everyone's origins. Those who have Japanese ancestry, who you basically say can constitute 10% of the population, will have to pledge loyalty to reunification in writing, otherwise we'll have to help them leave. You're basically calling for the ethnic cleansing of 2.3 million people in Taiwan.
No, you remember back in 1945, when Japan unconditionally surrendered, a lot of people in Taiwan who originally came from Japan, they were the rulers of Taiwan at the time, they stayed behind because of the magnanimity of the Chinese nation. Now, several decades later, they account for about 10% of the local population in Taiwan. Now, if you really do your homework, you will realize that those die-hard Taiwanese separatists include many of these Japanese
completely baseless
Chinese.
But okay. Well, but you would get rid of them. You would get rid of 2.3 million people.
No, after the reunification, everyone in Taiwan need to make a pledge whether they acknowledge there is only one China and Taiwan is part of China.
And if they don't make that pledge, they're out.
Those who pledge for the one China policy, they are local citizens.
By the way, you didn't say everyone. You said of Japanese descent. That is literally ethnic. You're picking people by their ethnic heritage, making them do a loyalty test. Otherwise, they have to get out of the country they've
lived in. It is not a loyalty test. Here, for example, in Britain, if you are a British citizen, you need to support the monarchy. You cannot say,
No,
I'm standing in Britain. I don't support the monarchy. I don't like King Charles.
No, you cannot
Amir,
say. No.
I just said it.
Mehdi,
I literally just said it.
you cannot take any action to oppose the monarchy system.
But I don't have to sign a pledge saying I support King Charles.
Well, each country is different.
Yeah,
we are talking
I can
about
assure you,
China.
China is very
and
different.
China has one policy which is part of the
Which
Constitution.
involves
那个英国籍的美国记者还指责咱们不爱好和平，我就想问问他，美国和英国最近轰炸也门胡塞武装，那是爱好和平吗？这以色列跑到伊朗暗杀哈马斯领导人，这美国还派军舰去支持，这叫爱好和平吗？这明摆着中国跟某些西方国家最大的区别就是，我们呢是言行一致，而他们是说一套做一套。这更离谱的是啊，那个记者还好意思问我们为啥不能放弃台湾？哎，他也不看看美国自己，什么德克萨斯了、加利福尼亚这些地方呢，时不时就闹独立。这英国呢，那为啥不放弃北爱尔兰呢？为啥不把马尔维纳斯群岛还给阿根廷呢？自己这个家里都乱成一锅粥了，还有脸来管我们中国的家务？说白了啊，这些都是人家自己的事儿，哪轮到别人瞎掺和？中国早就说了，我们不吃那一套，哎，谁也别想当我们的教师爷，他们没那个资格。所以啊，奉劝那些国家啊，这与其盯着中国找茬，你不如先把自己家里的事儿给管好。自从这个赖清德上台后啊，感觉这台湾海峡的风浪又大了起来，他那台独的调调真是让人心里七上八下的。
主张台湾独立，我是一个主张台湾独立的政治工作者，但我也是一个务实的台独主义者。我会继续蔡英文的4大坚持，我会力行4大支柱行动方案。
这不，有个新加坡的前外交官叫马凯硕的，就直接开炮了。他直接表示，台湾只是棋子，台独只是幻想。这话一出来，不少人都觉得挺有分量的。毕竟这人可不是随便说说。这位老先生啊，1948年出生在新加坡，在新加坡的外交界和学术界那可是响当当的人物。他年轻的时候就进了这个新加坡的外交部，一干就是几十年，算是资深外交官了。马凯硕这个人啊，说话是特别直率，不喜欢拐弯抹角，就喜欢用事实和逻辑来跟你掰扯。他尤其是擅长分析亚洲那边的地缘政治啊，对于这个中美关系啦、亚洲崛起这些话题啊，哎，他有一套自己独特的见解。
It's very sad that the leaders of Taiwan have failed to educate their own population on how dangerous the situation is going to be for Taiwan. Because as the US-China contest accelerates over the next 10 years, and it will accelerate for the reasons I've given in my book, Has China Won, which as I say has been published in China too. And in this game of geopolitical chess, Taiwan is a small pawn that could be easily sacrificed. So it's very important for the Taiwanese people to ensure that they don't do something that will damage them. And clearly, if Taiwan declares independence, this will lead to war because China cannot allow the secession of Taiwan from China. So therefore, it'd be wiser for the Taiwanese leaders to tell the population independence is not an option. And even if they declare independence, almost nobody will recognize it. Taiwan will become even more isolated than it is today. And therefore, the Taiwanese people should realize that they should find better ways of managing their relationship with China. And instead of getting engaged in a hostile relationship, they should find ways and means of talking to China in Singapore. So clearly, if you're going to be a pawn in a geopolitical chessboard, you have to be very, very careful. And so it was a mistake, for example, for Taiwan to host a visit of the US Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. And as you know, and even an American commentator, Tom Friedman of New York Times, said the visit was dangerous, reckless, and irresponsible. But at the same time, Taiwan welcomed her. Taiwan shouldn't have welcomed her, because she was not doing it because she loved the Taiwanese people. She was doing it for political grandstanding at home to enhance her status, because she knew she was going to lose her job as a speaker. So why should the Taiwanese people endanger their own lives by hosting a politician who doesn't care for the people of Taiwan and only wants to use Taiwan to enhance her own standing in the United States of America. So the danger for Taiwan is that they'll be used by politicians for their own purposes, and the interests of the Taiwanese people will be sacrificed in the process. So the Taiwanese people must become very shrewd and very brutally honest in understanding what is happening on the US-China front and ensure that they don't get caught in the crossfire.
马凯说的这番话其实也是在提醒台湾的某些人，那搞台独的后果是非常严重的，不是闹着玩的。毕竟和平稳定啊，才是老百姓最希望看到的。这真的是要走到那一步啊，受苦的还是台湾的普通民众啊。台湾呢是中国领土不可分割的一部分，这不只是历史，更是我们全体中国人民的底线。高志凯博士那句啊，中国领土一寸不让，就是我们最坚定的回答。任何人都别想在这件事上挑战我们的决心。好了，今天就给大家聊到这儿啦。你对这事又有什么看法呢？欢迎留言讨论啊！我是小懒，我们下期再见，感谢支持。